Brought to you by Penguin.
The Rain Before It Falls by Jonathan Coe. Read by Jenny Agutter. When the telephone rang, Jill was outside raking the leaves into coppery piles, while her husband shovelled them onto a bonfire. It was a Sunday afternoon in late autumn. She ran into the kitchen when she heard it shrilling, and immediately felt the warmth of inside enfold her, not having realised until then how chilly the air had become. There would most likely be a frost that night. Afterwards, she walked back up the path towards the little bonfire, from which blue-grey smoke was spiralling into a sky already beginning to darken. Stephen turned as he heard her approach. He saw bad news in her eyes, and his thoughts flew at once to their daughters, to the imagined dangers of central London, to bombs, to once routine tube and bus journeys suddenly turned into wagers with life and death. "What is it?" And when Jill told him that Rosamund had died, finally, at the age of 73, he was unable to ward off a shameful flood of relief. He took Jill in his arms, and they embraced gently, in a silence broken for a minute or more only by the crackle of burning leaves, the call of a wood-pigeon, the murmur of distantly passing cars. "The doctor found her," Jill said, easing away. "She was sitting up in her armchair, stiff as a board." She sighed. "Well, I shall have to go to Shropshire tomorrow and talk to the lawyer, start fixing up the funeral." "Tomorrow? I can't come," Stephen said quickly. "I know. It's the trustees' meeting. Everyone will be there. I'm supposed to be chairing." "I know. Don't worry." She smiled and turned, her ash-blonde hair, the only distinct part of her, bobbing down the garden pathway, leaving him, as so often, with a sense of having obscurely failed her. The funeral took place on Friday morning. The village, which Jill remembered from her childhood as being painted by numbers in vivid primary colours, was washed grey. The rich blue sky of those memories, still miraculously preserved somewhere on so many hundreds of transparencies, was reduced now to a sheet of perfect white, signifying nothing. Against this featureless backdrop, clusters of sycamore and conifer waved dark green and viridescent in the breeze, the rustle of their leaves the only sound to break in upon the imperishable noise of far-off traffic. In the churchyard itself there stretched a lawn of paler green, broken only intermittently by mossy and lichened outcrops of stone, where headstones rose up unassumingly, or sometimes jutted at curious angles, neglected. Beyond them, in that weak autumnal light, stood the tower of the Church of All Saints, reddish-brown, squat, ageless, the incongruously bright and burnished golden hands on its clock face pointing almost to 11 o'clock. The brickwork was jumbled and irregular, like ecclesiastical crazy paving. Rooks nested on the turreted rooftop. Jill stood beneath the little wooden porch at the entrance to the churchyard, arm in arm with her father, Thomas, watching a steady trickle of mourners rounding the corner past the Fox and Hounds. Her brother David stood beside them. The last time brother and sister had come to this churchyard together, more than 20 years before, it had been to tend the graves of their maternal grandparents, James and Gwendolen. That had been an unsettling visit. Jill was prone, in those days, to clairvoyant episodes, intimations of the supernatural, and afterwards she swore to David that she had seen their grandparents' ghosts. A vision, she claimed, glimpsed only briefly, but with absolute clarity, of the two of them sitting on a bench, drinking tea from a thermos flask, and absorbed in sporadic but amicable conversation. David had never known whether to believe her or not, and today, somehow, it seemed tactless to mention the incident. Instead, they stood in silent solidarity beside their father, and nodded greetings at each new arrival, not recognizing most of them. There were elderly friends of the deceased, and distant relatives, long since forgotten or presumed dead themselves. Few of those assembled seemed to know each other. It was a curiously unsocial gathering. The service was taken by the Reverend Torn, whom Jill had met for the first time only that week. During their brief conversations, she had found herself liking and trusting him, and although he had not been a close friend of her aunt's, he spoke about her fondly and well. Then, with the formalities over, a handful of mourners drifted haphazardly back towards the welcoming doors of the...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?